Hi, Steph from the BMW DIY Guy. My project today are the sport gauges from Awron out of Germany. I am so excited to get these into my car. What these are going to do is replace that double vent in the center of my console and replace the driver's side with a information gauge that's going to show me boost, turbo, temperatures, quarter mile times. It's amazing, all the things that it does. The installation is really straightforward, not very hard. I'm going to walk you through the whole process and really can be done with simple tools. This is such a cool addition to have in your car. You can pull a lot of this information, plug with your phone plugged in, but then where do you put it? This integrates in perfectly. The color is gorgeous. It matches the rest of the dash and that kind of amber color of the default from BMW. I just could not be more pleased to have this in my car. So let's get out to the car, let's get started, and we'll walk through the installation. All right, so out in the car, so we're going to take the disassembly here, which is going to be pretty easy. We're going to take it a step at a time. We're going to take off your center dash, this vent piece. We're going to take off the lower panel behind and below the glove box. We're going to take off that side panel over there, which covers our control module. And we're going to take off the door sill. So really straightforward. So let's start here first. If you haven't taken this off before, it's really easy. Just take and grab, and you can pull. You can also use a plastic trim tool under this lead edge here and pry if you have to. I find it easier just to get your fingers on it and gently rock it out. The one thing you don't want to do is have it pop out too quickly. Now, if you notice, my trim piece down here at the end has already popped loose. What frequently can happen is that this will come free and your end piece will still be in, and if you pry up, you'll snap it off right about here. Don't do that, right? So be really careful when you pull that free and get the whole thing loose. And then you've got two existing cables right here. These can be really stiff. You've got your first one here. You've got your second one for your switch. Now, you've kind of got a couple of different options for the switch here. The easiest is just to pull this plug out, which it will be a little stiff to come out, but it will come out. Getting it back in, I'm going to show you the trick later on how to get it back in a little bit easier. And it's going to be actually pushing the switch out itself. Okay, so you get this off. Get the wires out of the clip. You can take this and set it aside. Obviously, we're going to be pulling this vent out, but we can take this and we can set this aside for now. So put it aside someplace safe where it's not going to get broken or banged up. All right, so all of this is out. Now you've got some space to run your cabling. We're going to look to take this bottom panel off, bottom, side, and your kind of kick panel over the side, or over your door sill. And those will be next, and we'll pretty much have everything exposed when we start running cabling, and we can start to get to our ECU or our module over there where we're going to make all of our connections. Okay, so let's take this panel off. You've got two 10mm nuts right here and right here that you can just take off. I've got a 10mm driver that you just can get up in here and take these off. I'm not going to get the camera down this low, right, because you can feel them. They're really easy to find. There's one. And as we find the second one here, right there, let's take these and back these off. Okay, so there's those two. And then at this point, you can just reach up here on this lead edge and then just pull this panel down, and there's a series of clips that will just come down out of place. This panel will be down. Now you've got a cigarette lighter style adapter right here, or a power adapter. If you didn't know you had one, you do. You've got an extra one right here. So you've got one up here and one in the center of your dash. For a long time, I didn't even realize I had one here. So you take this and you unplug it. And then you also have a light back here in the back. And I've also found that this light can be really stiff. Now, in my case, thankfully, it just came off simply. Be really careful with that. I've actually almost broken those before because they can be so stiff. So this lower panel's off, which gives us access to get up into all of this space to route the cable through. You take your door trim off. Right here, as you can see, you can use a plastic trim tool if you have it, if it's really stiff. You can also get your fingers underneath it and just pop upwards, and it'll come off. Now, what you will find is that you have a series of posts that go down into this panel. Now, in my case, none of the posts came up with the actual trim itself. So what I'm going to do is I'll take a pair of pliers later and just pry on these plugs, and these plugs will come out. I'll slide them back into the tracks on the trim piece and push the trim piece back into place. So that's off safely. So now we've got this side piece here as well, which just pops up and off. So now You see this also has your typical kind of plastic trim piece on them right there. There's another one right in the middle which came off, so I'll make sure to pry that out. You can see it right here in the center, which I'll take that one out as well. And if you have a plastic trim tool that has the two fingers on either side, they're really good for getting underneath that and pulling these out. So now we can actually see this module that we're getting down to, okay? So I'm gonna change the camera so we can see this module a little bit better. We're gonna pull the cover off and start pulling the plugs out, and that's where we're gonna route our cable ends, where we have to make all the connections here into this module for the display. So pretty straightforward, easy so far. So the black plastic cover that was right here has a T20 Torx right here in the center. I pulled that T20 out and just kind of pulled the cover up and away and suspended it up here. It's got a couple of cables plugged in that I don't want to take off. Your first plug you want to get to is this closest one to the door edge. It's called connector 2. It has a horse collar connector on top. You just press the little tab and walk the horse collar back and your plug will come out. So now at this point, you've got this cover that goes over the top of the plugs, and you're going to need to slide them out. So there's just little locking tabs. You can lift, you can use your plastic trim tool, you can use a very narrow screwdriver, and these plugs will start to walk out of the sleeve, because what you're going to want to do is you're going to replace a couple of these plugs. Now this is tight enough that with both sides, and we're only getting to the white side of the plug, but really both sides are going to have to come out on the sleeve. So just like that, and you see the sleeves off. So now we've got the white plug, and this is the one we're getting to right here, and we're going to be getting to 18 and 19. This is a little bit hard to see, I understand, right here. 18 and 19 are right there, and if you look at the cable harness provided, you'll see the exact same style connectors, even the same colors, which is so nice to have wires of the exact same colors, so you know exactly where you're going to put your connectors. So now these pins are pinned in here with these little locking tabs right here, and there's a couple of different ways of getting at it. Now you can use like a 2mm screwdriver blade, flat blade, like this. You can use a pin, you can use, if you have the wiring tools to get these out, but the 2mm should fit okay. This is slightly larger than 2, and basically you're just pressing down on the little tab to get the wire to back out. You see? It's backing out of the harness right there. Now there are proper electrical tools for this, and to give you a hint, I've even used the blade or the vanes on a staple before. So you take a staple and flatten it out. It's really, really narrow, and it works perfectly to press on these little locking tabs. So I'm gonna press down here on 18 and 19, and the cables will start to work their way out. Now, what I would strongly recommend is only doing one at a time, so you don't forget which one is which. They're color matching on the harness from Awron, which is really nice. So I'm just going to pull them one at a time. So you can see first one is about halfway out, locked up on the tab right there a little bit. You can also use a pick tool for this, which I may have to get my pick tool to back this out, get this last one to back out for me. There we go. Almost. There we go. As you can see, it's out. You can even see the orientation that the current plug is in, so you can put it back right in the exact same orientation. So I'm going to take the color matching connection right here, which is really nice, put it in the same orientation, and slide it right down into that slot, just like that. And you can hear a tiny little click as it steps in. So I'm going to pull the red line next. I'll pull that out, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add these two to this connector, right? So there is a white connector that we're going to plug this into. Let me grab that and I'll show you. And basically, so you can just jump these cables in really nice and cleanly, which is really an elegant way of doing it. This really could be ugly and awkward, but it's not. So as you can see, this only goes in one way. You can see that the cables are color matched on the right sides. So when you look at this plug and how it's keyed, it's only keyed one direction. It'll only go in one way. So you've got this edge on one side, and keys in on one side. So you want to put this wire in the exact right position, which in this case, I'm gonna grab the original here. So the original is right here. So I've got the edge of this plug on this side, that keyed edge on this side, which means that this blue-red is going to go into, whoops, get to see me dropping things, right? This keyed edge is just going to go in, and again, this plug, because it's got those little barbs on them, it only goes in one way. So now you can double check. You can see it goes in. It's going to be on the correct side as we look at this. So I'm going to pull the red one out, and I'm going to add it to the plug, and I'm going to connect it, and then we're going to move on to the next plug in the series. But this side will be done, and we can lock it back in place. So I'm going to finish that. I'll show you this locked back into place, and we'll get started on the next plug. So the red wire's done, and I'm going to just snap it back into the sleeve. So make sure that you have the cables out of the way so they don't get pinched when you put it back together. And they'll just slide right back into the sleeve that you took them out of. We'll just get these set back in here, because we're not going to plug this back in until we take the other plug out as well. And you can see it just pushes into place. You can hear the little plastic tabs lock in that way. And then as you can see here, my cables are out of the way, so they're not going to get pinched or anything else. So now you're going to want to do the same thing here. Push down the little tab, get the horse collar up. This one's a little bit stiffer than the other. It's a lot stiffer than the other. Okay, so as I take my tool to depress, there we go. Okay, and then there you go. This came out as well. And then we're going to want to walk the blue plug. You'll see the same process. You've got a little bit of a locking tab on this side, so I'm just prying up on that plastic side, and then this will walk out. Now the chances are there's the brown on the other side. Yeah, it's tight enough that it's going to want to come out too. So you can either use your tool, get a little bit of space so the plug will walk out. The earlier ones I could just walk out with my fingers. The locking tab on this one's a little bit stronger. So I'm just going to walk this out. There we go. All right, as you can see, just things getting in my way here. All right, so I'm going to walk this blue plug out, and the brown one as well. I'm just careful. I'm going to pry this up so I can get the brown plug out. There we go. There we go. All right. Now, again, the nice thing is we're going to have color coordinated pins again. So now you've got your green and your blue-green here. And the pins you're going to be looking at, so if you're counting pins, so as we turn this around, we're looking at this side. All right, just like that. And the pin we're going to take out is this pin closest to this intersection here. That's the green one, as you can see right there. And then you've got your blue-green out on the outside on this side. So you're going to do the exact same process of get your tool in, push this locking tab down, get it to walk that pin out. And that pin will, and these cables are pretty tight, but they'll walk out. And like I said, you can use your pick tool, you can use a 2mm screwdriver or flat-bladed screwdriver blade, which is what I've got here. So, and this will just walk out. And be careful that you don't pull it out too hard. So there you go. So that first one's out. We replace it with the correct match. That's going to go straight in, and then you're going to add it to the blue connection. And you've got the blue plug, you've got your connections for blue and black, and they match up perfectly as you look at this. So colors will match perfectly as you go through this, which is like green on blue and blue on green. So you're going to follow the exact same process. So I'm going to transfer my two cables here. I'm going to plug them back into this plug here and then connect them. And I'll show you the third and final connection. And we're really close to done with all of this. This is the hardest part by far, and it's not all that hard. So I want to be really clear on colors here really quickly. We're looking at this second connection is the black plug. And you're looking at pins 20. So when you're looking at this, pin 20 is the closest one. So when you have this turned over, you can tell you're looking at the right side of this connector because it's got the scallops here, right here. Pin 20 is the closest one at the top, and pin 24. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 21, 22, 23, 24. So you're looking at green and brown. And when you look at your black connector, you have green and brown. So take your green right here, slide it into, get it in the correct orientation with the little barbs up. And I think it's called a Molex tool, is the tool that will allow you to get into these and you can push in. So if you have a Molex tool, then you're familiar with this and you can just use that. Or like I said, you can use the screwdriver blade or a pick tool like I have been. So green, snap it into place. There's a little click when it goes in. We have our brown. Brown's going to go into 24. Make sure that it's in the correct position. It's then turned up with the little barbs up. And you can tell it's pretty tight, but it's not hard. So this wants to turn in my hand. There we go. Just like that. Bing. And it's in with a good click. So green and brown. So then we're going to take our black. We want to make sure to match it up the correct way. It's keyed. The key side, the ridged side is brown. Okay, so when we look at this and you look at the plug, you can tell the ridged side of the plug is the brown side. So we're going to take our green connector first. Going to take that in and put it on the non-ridged side. Get this in the correct orientation, like that. It snaps into place. And brown, we get it to snap into place, just like that. Now the one thing I noticed on this black connector is it has one of these little locking plates so you can push down. So I just push the locking plate down. So then, and I've got a little bit of cable tangle, so make sure you don't have that. Can connect the two together. Just like that, bang. And that's set. So now we've only got one left to do. So I'm gonna pull that, which I'll pull that one and I'll show you that next. Okay, so our last connector that we're gonna branch off of is connector 10. If you look at the diagram, it's this guy right here. Same thing, little horse collar that you press down and it'll back out. Okay, so just like we've done so many times here, then we're gonna walk the sleeve off. It's gotta come off this sleeve. And now the one thing I wanted to point out before I get that sleeve off is when you look at this connector, if you notice, and this is coming off the wiring harness for the gauges, that it's only connected on one side right here. So both wires are going into one side, and that is on the keyed side of the plug, right? So when you look at this, so make sure when you plug this in that you plug it into the correct side, right? So in this case, now, or I could turn it either way to be which orientation, but just make sure that you look at it and you can see the wire connector, the little metal little plate right here. So make sure when you pull this out that you put it in on the correct side here. Last thing you want to do is have it be on the wrong side and you're wondering why this doesn't work quite right. Okay, so you're going to do the exact same process. So take this out, take this sleeve off, slide it out. Find the correct wire, and again, color match, which is so nice. It makes this so much easier. You just color match, slide it off. I'm going to reassemble all the rest of these plugs just like I did. So here's my big one that I was on a second ago. Take this guy and just slide it back into its sleeve. For whatever reason, the back ones really just want to be stiff. There you go. So just like that, slide its little locking plate sleeve back into place. So it's good to go. This one's good to go. They're all connected up really nicely. And then I'm just going to do this last one. So I'll finish this up. You're going to take the sleeve off just like you did on all the rest. You're just going to pry the cover back a little bit and this plug will come out. And then I'm going to replace it. I'll show you what it looks like when it's all done and plugged back in. And you'll plug them back in really simply, again, by just putting it back into place, locking that horse collar down, and then you can reassemble all this. Then what we're going to do is we're going to run our cable up through the dash and into where our gauges are going to be. But we're real close to being done. All right, so the last plug is ready to go in. I just wanted to show how these horse collars kind of go in. It's how they walked out the same way. They come out. So you just simply have them kind of in the utmost upright position. Slide the plug into place and you'll feel the horse collar kind of bite into the lock and will just simply snap down into place. So let's get this just in a nice clean position, bang. and it's all nice and locked in. So all three, 1, 2, 3, are all locked back into place. Our connections are clean, so we're going to want to make sure to get our cables laid down really nicely so this plate goes back over the top of them. But I wanted to show it just kind of in this last step of everything all connected. So at this point, all we need to do is route our cable up through the spaces we've got available here, and I'm going to back the camera off so you can see a little bit better. I know it's too close for the rest of the work. So I'm going to route the rest of the cable up into the dash space, install our gauges into our center cluster, and it's going to be great. All right, so the hardest part is done. So now's the time where you're going to take this plate and you're going to put it back on, slide it back. And again, there's little locking feet on it here. You've got your T20 Torx that goes in here. I'm also going to take my plastic trim tool and back this panel clip off and put it in this cover, back in the cover that goes here. So let me change my camera position so you can see all this a little bit more clearly. And I'm going to get this side put back together. We're going to route our cables and we're going to plug our gauges in. All right, so let's put this partially back together. This lower plate we can't put on yet because we have to route the cabling. But let's do that first. It's going to be a little hard to show, but it's a lot easier than you think. You don't need to pull your center trim at all. And this cable's got a nice curve to it. There's an opening right here and opens directly through. So if you stick your head right here, you can see it really easily. And you can see the light if you have a flashlight or otherwise. So you can just take this and just feed it up in, and you can see exactly where the plug is going to come out. Now I'm going to do this kind of blind and see if I can feed it into my own hand. But you can just start to feed this cable straight in, and you're going to route it up past your vents. So you can start that process. Now the other thing you're going to want is you've got a USB cable that you're going to use for updating the display and updating the gauges. So I'm going to pull all of this cabling up and through up to here, and then I'm going to route the USB cable back into my glove box. And I don't have that netting, so if you've got that little netting addition on your glove or in your glove box, you can actually pull that netting down and it leaves the holes where the feet for that net go. Those holes are perfect. I took my netting out. The holes are perfect for routing cabling like these USB cables. So that's where I'm going to route it. So I'm going to feed this the rest of the way up in just a moment. And as long as I have enough room up through here, and as I go, I'm going to just route it just gently up on this tray right back here. And you can feel where it fits really nicely. And it's already most of the way in. The other thing we're going to want to do is put the side panel back on and put your kick plate back on. Now, like I mentioned before, all these little feet for the kick plate came off. So let's take a pair of pliers, just rock them out. And you can see they're big like plastic trim posts. So then you'll take your kick plate and just slide them back into the rails. Nice and simply like that. And I have to walk down all of them because all of mine were left behind. So I'm going to pull out every single one, and then you just flip your kick plate over, line the posts up at the holes, and then just gently bang it back into place with your hand. You do the same thing with this side plate here too, which you're going to want to put on first. It's got 3 of these. So here's my plastic trim tool. I'm going to get this back out, and it goes into a little mounting clip right here, just like that. It snaps into place. Okay, so we're going to want to get this back into place as well, and it'll just snap nice and easy. Now when you snap this back into place, make sure that you've got enough cabling left and you don't have your light cable caught up as well. This is that kick plate with that light cable. So make sure that all this fits back up in here nicely. The one other thing that I always make sure to check when I do this, let me slide this up in here, is your felt trim here on the side. Make sure to pull it up so it's not pinned down by this piece. Okay, so just take this, snap it back into place. I'm going to snap the kick plate back into place, and you can see my cable's fed most of the way through. I'm going to do this lower plate last. I'm going to do it, but I'm going to feed my cable the rest of the way through. So I'm going to snap this into place, pull out the rest of my little posts here, and get my door sill back on. And then we can look to fitting the gauge, because now we have to take out the vents in the gauge and fit the new vents and gauge into that. And it's just a series of clips. So really easy. And yeah, I'm excited. I hope you are too. The door sills are on. The side kick plate is on. I've routed the cable. It's pulled all the way up and through. As you can see, all I had to do is just reach my hand in and the plug was right there, pulled it out, including my USB cable. The USB cable's all the way out on that side, which is great. And I'm going to route it back once I'm sitting over here. But I just wanted to get the rest of the side of the car put together. So you've got this kick plate here. You have to plug your light in first. So let's get that plugged in. Now, there are two essentially little plastic shelf-like hooks. There's one here and there's one here. So you're gonna get to look at the back of my head as I do this. So when you rock this back here, they both go up onto little plastic. There's a hook on this side, and there's a little shelf on this side that they just connect to. So they're hard to see and hard to show, but they're not hard to see, they're just hard to show. So I'm just gonna rock all those back into place. Make sure to plug my outlet back in. So you just get this, rock it back onto those shelves, and then just walk it right back up into place. And it will come up. There's little front clips that go into the dash up here. And it's just a matter of just kind of working it and working it, getting it back up in the right place, like that. It's just short, just like that. There you go. And there's a little bit of trim on this side that we want to track back in the right place so it looks nice. There you go. So, and it'll hold itself up in place. So then you're just going to take your two 10mm, like I said, there's posts right here and you can feel them. There's one right here. I always just get them started with my fingers like that. Turn them into place. And let's do this side. You just feel with your fingers until you feel the post. Nope, that's the outlet. There's the post. Okay. Don't stick your 10mm nut into that power outlet. There you go. So now it's just tracked into place with my fingers, and then you can tighten them up. So your passenger side's all back together. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take our center dash piece and I'm going to put it over on my workbench, and I'm going to show the space where we can take out the center vents and put the new gauges in. And then once those are in and clipped into place, it's just going to be a matter of plugging them in and turning them on, which is going to be awesome. So I've got my trim out, as you can see, and I've got the new gauges, or the new vent with the new gauge. So it's just held in by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these little U clips that go over the top right here. And on the bottom, there are little feet that just rock into place. So the big thing to do on this is to be really careful so you don't break any of these. The plastic is relatively thin, so as you look at this, you'll see there's these little clips right here on top. There's one here, there's one here, there's one here, one here, and here, and here. And it's gonna be a matter of just prying them very gently up so you can rock the vents out of place, because they're hooked in with little feet at the bottom. So I'd recommend using something like a plastic trim tool or something similar. Metal very well may break it, so that's what you do not want. So you're going to want to just apply gentle pressure, because the other thing you don't want to do is you just rock these out of place and apply pressure for them to come out. The other thing you don't want to do is break any of these, because then your new ones aren't going to go in very, very straight either. So I'm just slowly working my tool around the clips, and I'm willing to bet you these would break pretty easily. So I am being as gentle as I possibly can be to walk each one of these out, because they just want to, yep, there you go, just really nice and gentle. So that side's looser, and I'm going to work my way down the other side. So I'm going to work each one really, really carefully. You could even potentially use something to place in and put like a little shim in to hold each one up, like maybe a little piece of wood or a little piece of cardboard. This plastic trim tool is perfect for this, that it goes around that clip and starts to separate. And just get each one of these little collars lifted up and away to get the vent to start to rock out. And as you can see, it's starting to come out a little bit. So I'm going to rock each one of those out and then just peel the vent, turn it away from the trim, and then I'll show you snapping the new one into place. But take this stage really simply, really carefully. Last thing you want to do is break anything. All right, my vents are out, so I'm also going to take this opportunity to take my hazards and lock button out of my old vents. And you can take that out by just pushing it there's these little clips that hold it into place. If it's real stiff and doesn't want to push forward, you can take one of your plastic trim tools and work it down in between the switch and the body, and which will depress one of those little tabs and it'll come out. This will make it a lot easier to plug this back in when we put this back in the dash. It's a bit of a trick, it works pretty well. So my vents are out, which is cool. I also succeeded in not breaking any of these little clips, and they really want to break. This is where I really want to emphasize how careful you are. You can probably see I have all of my plastic trim tools out. So what I would do, now that I can show a little bit more clearly, so these clips here and here and here, there's 3 per side. So I would like work my plastic trim tool in and around one of those clips and then leave the tool there. And then I could use another to pry up and slowly work it out. Because, you know, if you just work one at a time, you'll get that one and then you'll move to the next one and it'll snap back into place. It's not hard. You just have to be really careful and detailed. You know, your vents aren't quite as important, obviously, if you're going to take them out, and this is a great opportunity that maybe if your buttons are worn or show wear and tear, hey, this is a great opportunity to replace them. But what you really don't want to do is break these clips, because this would really make this much more difficult, okay? So when you look at this, there are feet across the bottom as well, and you can see the holes that line up. So what you just do is take it and line that up with those holes, which should line up the rest of the components as you walk this in. As you can see, it just walks up into place, and just like those clips were so stiff to get on, now you just lock them into place, and you should hear the clips as they clip in. There we go, there we go. You got this one that's a little bit stiff. I'm gonna work on the alignment. Alignment's off a little bit. So I'm gonna get this centered a little bit better, but then just rock it back up into place, and then this is replaced and ready to go, and we can reinstall it back into the center dash. The only thing that's really left is gonna be plugging your 2 plugs in for your button and your controls here, and then plugging in for your gauges. So we're real close to final assembly and done. All right, so let's plug everything back in. So I've got my USB cable run into my glove box, so it'll make it very convenient for updating the display if I need to in the future. So got your trim piece. Again, be really careful with the end so you don't break it. So I'm going to show you the little trick with the little switch, because for whatever reason, when this switch is in place, it is really hard to get this plug back in, or at least it is for me. How about that? All right, so we've got our new display plug, which is new, which will be right here. So let's go ahead and get that plugged in first. And it's keyed so it only goes in one way. Make sure that it's in and in firmly. It's snapped all the way in, and you can hear that there's a little click when it gets all the way in. All right, so then you've got your button cable here, you've got your top cable, so I'm going to plug that in as well to get that in. Now the button I'm actually going to take and feed through, and actually feed it up through the hole in the console right here, or in the center dash piece, because that makes it much easier to work with. And I actually think it would be even harder than normal with the new plug in place for the gauge. So as you can see, as I'm struggling just to get this in place. All right, so you just feed that up and through like that, and then just feed it through the center as you get this back into place. Now, to get your vents in, just take them and just rock them gently, kind of up and down, up and down, up and down, as they'll mate back into your vents like that. All right. Okay. Good, good. And you'll feel when they lock in, and they lock in and lock in. Down at this end, get them to fit in. There we go. There we go. Okay. So your center console's back in with the new gauge in place. I left the film on, of course, for now. I didn't want to scratch or anything else like that. Take your button, which can be so problematic because it's keyed, but man, is it hard to get back in. So you want to go this way or that way or this way. As you can see, it just doesn't want to go back in, right? So you turn to turn to turn. Oh, there it is, right? All right, so it's plugged in. Just feed the cable back into place. Back in it goes. You can press all the way back in there, like that. Okay, so everything's all in together. Like I said, I need to go get my keys because I've kept them away from the car. But at this point, everything's plugged back in. Everything should be good to go. I'm gonna go get my keys. We'll have a first turn on, and I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, make sure you get a nice tight view as the gauges come up. But I wanna make sure to share this moment with you of these gauges being on. I'm really excited. All right, so I've got the camera right where my head is, so I'll try not to be too loud here. I wanted the kind of driver's side view. So first startup, here we go. All right. Now there's a ton of functionality here that I'm going to have to learn, and I will go through that in a walkthrough video, a future walkthrough video. I'm using the cruise control dial on the left side of my steering wheel, and as long as cruise control is not on, you can cycle through and use this to control your displays. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm also going to plug this into my laptop and run their software, and since I'm here in the US, I'm going to change the settings to US or non-metric, non-Celsius, so Fahrenheit, so on and so on. But as you can see, looks really good. Now, there's going to be a lot for me to learn as I do this, but you can see it's up and working, which is just fantastic. I'm really excited about this, and this is going to add some really cool functionality to my car, not only just for daily driving, but as I do other things like quarter-mile tests later this year, and I'm looking to continue to tune my car. This is going to be a really valuable tool for me as I go through this, to give me more information than rather than having to have my phone plugged in or run other gauges and other logging. This will give me great snapshots while I'm working, so I can actually see what's going on. So all in all, I'm really pleased. What a really cool addition to the car. I really strongly recommend it. So I'm going to put all my tools away and get wrapped up. All right, back inside after cleanup, and as you can see, it looks absolutely fantastic. The install won't take you very long, so you can really walk through this process. There are only a few simple tools, as you saw, so it really isn't that hard. I really encourage you to check this out and look to add this into your car, and this will work for both left-hand and right-hand drive cars. They'll just put the gauges on the proper side for your driving side, so it's going to work really, really well. So I encourage you to check it out. If you like what you've seen today, please click subscribe, click the little notification bell so you get updates on my upcoming projects, as I have a lot on my workbench that I'm working through. Thank you to Awron for this fantastic project and being able to show what their gauges can do in your car as well. And I look forward to seeing you on my next video.